peanut butter was invented? Why is the sky blue?
Why do the stories of then matter now? Let's discover something new today.
Welcome to Kids on the Square!
Hi everyone! Today's episode of Kids on the Square is a little different because we have a special treat for you. Our brand new audiobook recording of Sherry Eissen's The Upside Down Forest. We hope you enjoy it.
The Upside Down Forest by Sherry Eyssen. Read by the author. Chapter 1. Dawn in the Forest. Millie Mouse lifted one ear. The song that carried through the air was as dependable as morning, and a daily reminder that the owner of the forest was good. The creatures knew him as the woodsman, and spoke with wonder of his great cabin high atop the forest. There were stories that the land of his mountaintop dwelling was unlike anything they had ever seen, and they were convinced it was real because the evidence of the woodsman was all around them. He had designed and planted the forest, and when it was completed, he placed the creatures in it and gave each one gifts to make forest life a blessing. Among those gifts was song, and it had been entrusted to Rhonda Robin. The joy she found in that gift never grew old, and she delighted in using it to awaken the sleepy community. Each dawn, she offered her cheerful melody so sweetly that the sound of her happiness filled the other creatures with equal delight. To Millie, Rhonda's song was a lullaby, because mice are among the creatures whose work is done in the cover of night. Under the twinkle of starlight and silver moonbeams, she was content in her surroundings. Though Millie's work was not seen by others, it was no less valuable than those who labored in the daylight. The hours she kept were important, because she fed on insects and worms that crept in the dark. The more of them she ate, the less there were to feed on the leaves and roots of the forest. Millie's gift of energy kept their numbers down as she scurried through the woods sniffing out her meals. She paused only to dine on seeds she found hidden in the moss, for small as she was, Millie had a big appetite. The sky lightened, and Millie knew it was quitting time. Though her little body was tired, she would make one last stop before heading home, a visit to the great oak of Squire Squirrel. There, a treat was sure to be waiting. Squire was a master at finding the best nuts from high atop the trees. His gifts included muscular legs and sharp claws that allowed him to jump freely from tree to tree and grasp fast to the trunks and branches. And then there were his teeth. Long and hard, Squire used them to chew through the toughest shells to get at the nuts. It took patience and work, but that served him well because squirrel teeth never stopped growing. As he anticipated the reward inside, all that gnawing kept his teeth trimmed and healthy. Everything was a joy for Squire. He loved the freedom that came with his skills and delighted in finding foods to satisfy his hunger. He plucked fruits and berries from bushes, mushrooms and roots from the forest soil, and even gathered an occasional egg. Still, his favorite reward was always nuts, and he was careful to store enough for the long winter months when the trees were bare. With all his talent, there was something even more wonderful about Squire. He was generous. No matter what he gathered, he would always leave a portion at the base of the great oak for the blessing of his neighbors. Millie was one of them. Anticipating a treat on the way home was such fun. She never took Squire's kindness for granted and was careful to take just enough and leave the rest for others. Millie arrived at the great oak right at daybreak and found her favorite treat waiting, black walnuts. She squealed with delight and shouted up her thanks, hoping Squire was awake enough to hear. Then she hurried home with her treasure. Dewdrops hung from the leaves surrounding her burrow, which she used to wash her face and paws before sitting down with her helping of black walnut. It was a perfect ending to her night. Grateful and content, Millie sunk into her leafy bed. As she drifted off to sleep, the other creatures readied themselves for the new day. Chapter 2. Rise and Shine. The forest creatures yawned and stretched. The sun was rising, and Rhonda's song encouraged them to do the same. As usual, Ralston Rabbit was already awake when the morning song filled his ears. He lingered for just a moment in the warmth of his burrow, but now it was time to get going. The grass of early morning was especially sweet, and the rumble in his tummy hurried him along. Ralston stood, stretched his body, then shook his back legs, and performed a few practice thumps to make sure he was prepared for action. A meticulously clean rabbit, Ralston never skipped his daily grooming. He began by washing his face and smoothing his fur, giving special attention to his long ears. He ran them between his paws, making sure they were spotless. That was important because the woodsman had given him the ability to hear in 2 different directions at the same time. But that was not his only ability. He could also see in all directions at once, even behind him. He could run fast and jump high, and when he was extra happy, he could even twist in the air. As he thought about the day ahead and all that the woodsman had allowed him to do, his happiness overflowed, and the moment he hopped out of his burrow, he jumped very high and added a little twist to express his thankfulness. He was ready. Hopping along the familiar path to the meadow, Ralston heard the rustling of bushes in a berry patch and was sure he knew who was having breakfast. He was just about to call out when an enormous bear stood up with traces of berries on his face and a grin of sheer delight. Just as Ralston had suspected, it was his old friend Baxter. The rabbit greeted him. "Good morning, Baxter. Beautiful day, isn't it?" Being a friendly fellow, Baxter never missed a chance to offer encouraging words to his neighbors. "I believe this is as fine a day as I have ever seen," he said in his deep, rich voice. Of course, Baxter said that every day, no matter the weather, and he meant it every time. Now Baxter, being a hibernating animal, goes into a deep, long sleep that lasts all winter. Well, you can imagine that when he wakes up, he's hungry, really hungry. Baxter had been out of hibernation for months, but still ate like he just woke up. He gobbled meadow grass, roots, and insects, and then would head off to the lake to round out his diet with whatever fish he could get his paws on. He enjoyed it all, but if you asked him, he was sure to say his favorites were berries and honeycombs. Baxter was the biggest of the forest creatures. Good-natured and gentle, he loved life. He loved to roll in the grass. He loved to scratch against the bark of trees. He loved to splash in the water and lay in the sun. And most of all, he loved to go berry picking. Well, berry eating. Finding them was never a problem because one of his gifts was an extraordinary sense of smell. Baxter could sniff out berries miles away, and when he had eaten all the ripe ones, he simply lifted his nose in the air and let it guide him to the honey. But as determined as Baxter was to find honey, the bees were equally determined to hide it, and often used the hollow of a tree to protect their hive. Baxter welcomed the challenge. He had patience and was willing to do whatever was needed to get at the sticky sweetness. And since the woodsman had given him amazing strength, trees did little to stop him from satisfying his sweet tooth. He'd reach his big old paw inside, and if it came up empty, he began using his great strength and powerful claws to tear open the trunk and pull out the honeycomb. It was pretty impressive, but not to the bees. Baxter lived each day in gratitude that the woodsman had allowed him to call the forest his home. He saw life as good, and sharing it with the other creatures made it even better. More than his great size, his great heart made him an admirable bear. Chapter 3. Good Neighbors. Deep in the forest, near a rocky waterfall, the Fox family made their home. The peaceful setting was well suited to the nature of Felicia Fox and ideal for raising her young. Quiet in manner, Felicia was kind to others, devoted to her family, and known for being as smart as she was pretty. Felicia kept a tidy den and watched carefully over her young. She knew they would grow quickly and dedicated her time preparing them for the world they would step into. That meant some sacrifice. Though the Fox family had a strong bond, it was in their nature to go off alone in search of food. With the constant care of little pups, Felicia couldn't do that, so Father Fox provided food for all of them. As he met their need, Felicia taught her young what it meant to live well in the forest. Friendly and playful, Felicia had a way of making others happy to be around her. Her reddish-brown fur and long, beautiful tail perfectly complemented her slender face and graceful movements. But there was something more beautiful than her appearance. Felicia possessed a humble intelligence. She had a knack for finding quick and clever ways to overcome difficulties and embrace joy. Felicia inspired her neighbors. She understood the woodsman had given good gifts to all the forest creatures and was happy to use hers to the best of her ability. On this day, that meant introducing her pups to the forest beyond their den. The pups were brimming with excitement. When their mother explained they would have to wait until evening, they felt like the sun was stuck in the sky. Finally, it began to dip, and Felicia gathered her young for their first venture to the tree of Owen Owl. Owen was a quiet and thoughtful bird who possessed great wisdom. He had exceptional eyesight that allowed him to see a far distance and sensitive hearing that kept him attuned to things others missed. Owen knew those abilities were not of his making and recognized the woodsman had granted them for a purpose. Humbled in that understanding, he dedicated these gifts to learning as much as he could about the woodsman and his ways. Day after day, month after month, year after year, Owen listened much and hooted little until his knowledge was very great. It was his nature to be up through the night pondering things that were true, but he also made an effort to take flight by day and visit the woodland creatures. He showed interest in their lives, for Owen loved them and they knew it. The animals came to trust the knowledge of Owen and would go to him for advice when they didn't understand something or couldn't agree on a matter. They always left feeling better. Felicia managed to herd her excited pups together and step into the fading light. They viewed the world with wide eyes and energetic steps, but stayed close to their mother. The journey to Owl's Tree was not very far, and Felicia was almost as excited as her pups to have them meet her dear friend. Owen was on his favorite branch, enjoying the cool breeze of evening, when Felicia arrived with her little family. "Good evening, Brother Owl. I have brought my little ones out for their first walk in the forest and wanted them to meet you." She lined them up and looked tenderly at each one, nearly bursting with joy at the growth that was evident in their size and character. "Well, Felicia, what a fine family you have. I've been waiting to meet and welcome them to the forest." He fluffed his feathers and directed his attention to each little bundle of fur. "And who might you be, little friend?" smiling affectionately with each response. It didn't take long for them to feel safe in his presence, and soon they were laughing and talking about how good it was to live in the woodsman's forest.
We'll be right back with more of the Upside Down Forest.
It's too long. They won't pay attention.
No one talks like that anymore. They won't understand.
Just read the summary online.
Don't you learn that in
It's
school?
above your reading
We
level.
can tackle that later.
American history is my history. Go to kidsonthesquare.com today and find the KOTS 250th challenge.
It's a fun, interactive checklist with crafts, puzzles, recipes, and more.
Complete the list and you can become a KOTS 250th scholar.
Chapter 4, The Awful Day. The forest creatures went about their days and nights in peace and contentment. They knew they were loved by the woodsman and lived secure in that understanding. It remained that way for a very long time, until one awful day. There was one creature that refused to do his part. He was known simply as Snake and was jealous of the woodsman. Snake wanted the admiration of the forest creatures and dreamed of owning the mountaintop where the cabin sat. Though he schemed day and night to get what he wanted, he feared the one who owned it. Snake was aware the forest had been perfectly designed to meet the needs of all the creatures. The woodsman had seen to that, and the happiness that resulted was clear. But Snake was not happy, and he didn't want the forest creatures to be happy either. He thought and thought. How could he use his venomous lies to get his way? If only he could make them believe he knew something they didn't, he could poison their gifts. That was it. He would present himself as one who had their best interest in mind and convince them they were missing out. If he could cause them to question the goodness of the woodsman, that would surely lead to disobedience, and life in the forest would be turned upside down. Rhonda would be his first victim. Getting her to doubt the purpose of her gift would ruin her sweet song of gratitude and the encouragement it brought to the others. All Snake needed to do was turn her thoughts away from the woodsman and onto the gift. He slithered up the tree and waited. The sun was near the horizon, and soon Rhonda would hop onto the familiar branch and sing her morning song of praise. Snake approached with casual disinterest. "Morning already?" "Oh, yes," she replied. "It's time to sing out the new day." "I would think you'd get tired of having to be the first one up day after day, risking that beautiful voice in the chill of the morning air." "This is my gift from the woodsman, and it's very important," Rhonda said with enthusiasm. Is that what he told you?" "Certainly, a voice as beautiful as yours should be used for more important things than wake-up calls." "I don't know, of course, but it seems he's keeping you from reaching your full potential." "I don't believe that," Rhonda protested. "You don't, or you won't," Snake taunted. "If he has given such good gifts, why limit them?" Snake's words had taken Rhonda off guard and caused her to wonder. She was sleepy this morning, and the chill was noticeable. Though she had never considered it before, the brisk morning air couldn't be good for her voice. Why did she have this responsibility? And why should she always be the first creature up? Maybe Snake had a point. The doubts blossomed, and her thoughts became words. "My voice is beautiful, and I really should protect it. Maybe it's time I consider what's best for me." With that, Rhonda returned to her nest. For the first time, morning was silent. Chapter 5. Spreading Lies. Snake eased his way down the tree and moved quietly across the moss where Millie was finishing her night's work. The sky was brightening, and as Millie moved toward the path to the great oak, Snake addressed her. "My, you are a hard worker," Snake hissed in flattery. "Why, there would be bugs everywhere if it weren't for you. What a pity so few see that." His presence startled her, and she froze as though trying to make herself invisible. It took nearly a full minute before she felt safe enough to speak. "I'm nocturnal," she said. "The quiet of night is when the bugs come out, and they are my food." "Oh, I see. Well, I'm sure the day creatures would be thankful for your service, if only they knew. Of course, they don't, since the woodsman has you work while they sleep. Still, it seems unfair that you go unnoticed." Snake paused, giving time for discontent to fill Millie's thoughts. I've heard the daybugs are very tasty, but then you'll never know. It may be the woodsman wants to keep you in the dark in more ways than one." I'd never thought of it like that. Millie's words trailed off, which is just what Snake was waiting for. He knew she was no longer satisfied with her gift. Seeing how quickly his lie took hold, he headed for the great oak to make sure it stuck. Once again, black walnuts waited at the base of the oak. A swift flick of Snake's tail sent the whole bunch into a nearby thicket and well out of sight. The disappointment Millie was sure to feel when she saw the spot empty would convince her that Snake had been correct. She wasn't appreciated. Having set the stage, he wound his way to the nest of Squire Squirrel. Snuggled in twigs and leaves, Squire's tail was wrapped about him. He opened his eyes, yawned, and stretched, and being too energetic to linger, Squirrel drew back his tail and hopped out of his leafy bed. He thought it strange that he hadn't heard Rhonda's song. Snake was hanging from the branch above and could see the puzzled look on Squire's face. "Did the complaining wake you?" "Complaining? What?" Squire was not only confused by this unexpected visitor, but also by the question. Snake spoke with a tone of innocence. "Oh, some mouse was looking around at the base of your tree and was really upset with what she found. I thought maybe her words disturbed your sleep." "Millie? I don't understand. The black walnuts? She loves those." "Oh, you know her?" "I was just traveling through and saw her there. If she loves them, it didn't show in her attitude. She was quite angry. I think she was mumbling something about selfishness. You having lots, others having little. Of course, I really wasn't close enough to hear everything." Snake saw the hurt on Squire's face and knew it was the perfect opportunity to crush his spirit. He chose his words carefully to keep him focused on the pain. "I'm sorry. My words have troubled you." Squire's response was more of a whispered thought. "I've always shared, even my favorite foods. I just don't understand why she would be upset." Snake seized the moment. "It appears your generosity has been taken for granted. I guess you just didn't meet her expectations." "Expectations?" Squire was stunned. "What expectations? These are gifts, and gifts are chosen by the giver. Who would question that?" Snake had him. "Your neighbors. At least from the grumbling I heard." "Grumbling? Grumbling? I have shared freely, and this is what it has come to?" By now, Squire's hurt turned to anger. "I work hard gathering food, and have shared freely because I know some could never enjoy these nuts. I thought it would bring happiness. I've never expected praise, but neither would I have imagined criticism. If this is their attitude, my efforts are for nothing. That ends it. Since the gifts I offer are not appreciated, there will be no more." That day, Squire buried his generosity as deep as his winter food. Chapter 6. Not Enough. The meadow was green with sweet clover, and true to his nature, Ralston was in the middle of it. As he ate, he was filled, but not satisfied. Something was troubling him, but he didn't know what. Adding to this unrest was confusion over the absence of Rhonda's song. Why didn't he hear it? Was something wrong with his ears? The subtle burdens dulled his alertness, making Ralston completely unaware of Snake's nearness. Having moved silently through the emerald cover, Snake lifted his head in the very center of Ralston's face, the one place rabbits cannot see. He greeted him from his unseen position, which triggered a foot-high jump from the rabbit. Snake called out quickly, "I'm sorry." I didn't mean to scare you. Everybody knows rabbits have good hearing, so I thought you knew I was here." The apology disarmed Ralston, and he cautiously remained in the clover. "We do. I'm just not myself today." Snake acted concerned. "I've heard of that happening to forest creatures when they don't have an adequate place to sleep. I assume the woodsman has given you such a place?" Ralston's answer revealed gratitude. "He has given me a little burrow to call my own." "Little? Why so confined? How can you be expected to do your best when you are forced to live in cramped conditions?" Snake baited him. "Surely a generous space and soft bed is the right of every creature. Take Baxter, for example. His den is amazing. No wonder he sleeps right through the winter. Who wouldn't? Well, Baxter is a lot bigger than I am. He needs more room. So, just because he's big, you have to settle for less?" Snake pressed the issue. No. Ralston was getting frustrated. "The woodsman gives us what we need." "So he doesn't think you need as much as Baxter?" At this point, Snake had to disguise his delight in tormenting the innocent rabbit. "No, it's just that I'm a rabbit and Baxter is a bear, and we're just different." "Oh, now I get it. Some creatures matter more than others, so that's how you're treated." "Wow, the way I see it, one creature shouldn't have more than another. If Baxter gets to live in a big cave, shouldn't everyone?" Ralston just didn't know how to answer the craftiness of the snake. He had already been feeling confused by this unusual day. Why didn't he hear Rhonda? Why didn't he sense Snake's approach? Why did life suddenly seem so strange? Maybe Snake knew what he was talking about. Maybe a small burrow wasn't enough. Why shouldn't he live like Baxter? And why didn't he see this before? Ralston turned to question Snake, but saw only the tip of his tail. He was already on the move to the bear.
It seems like things in the forest certainly are getting turned upside down. But don't worry, this isn't the end of the story. Part 2 of the Upside Down Forest is coming soon, and you don't want to miss it. What do you think happens next to the creatures in the forest? What can we learn from this story? We'd love to hear from you. With the parent or guardian's permission, you can log on to kidsonthesquare.com and contact us to tell us what you think. You can even leave a voice message right there in the contact form, recorded straight from a cell phone. And while you're there on the website, remember to check out the KOTS 250th Challenge. Don't forget to share this episode with a friend and subscribe to our podcast page so you don't miss our next episode. Kids on the Square is generously supported by listeners like you. If you'd like to support this program, you can contact us via the website kidsonthesquare.com. And if you're a parent or guardian listening and you're new to the Public Square, we hope you visit thepublicsquare.com and discover the full host of other radio products we have available. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on
Kids on the Square.